Hello. Let's see what is happening here. If people are coming in to the event, um, just give me a few more minutes. I need to just make sure everything is set up. Okay. So today we will be talking about how to lower your emission from transport. I think this is a very interesting topic. That is, there are so many things happening in this area, and what I wanted to do is to touch base on some of those things. And I'm very glad that you decided to join me in this last days before the new year. I personally have had too much to eat, and it's good to be back in some kind of normality. I guess that it will start again next week, more in the normal way. So with that, let me go into the presentation. Just wanted to show my face a little bit so you can see that there is a real person here behind. Let's see. So if we are talking about, like we are talking about today, emission from transportation of goods with road freight, for example, then I'm focusing on the scope 3 of the emissions of the greenhouse gas protocol. And a little bit of introduction about me. I might be in contact with you who are listening and watching. My name is David Leifsson. I have been in logistics for I think about 20 years now. And I'm living in Västerås, Sweden. I'm actually from Iceland, but I've been living here for I think 17 or close to 18 years. So I'm kind of more of a Sweden now than a Icelandic, I would say. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and you can find me either if you search just David Leifsson or in this link here, you can find me. I'm always open for connection, so feel free to add me to your network. And what I talk about these days is sustainable transportation, intermodal transportation, and how we can cut emission in transport. And my main focus has been on the European intercontinental transportation, but the method is similar for other areas. So it is quite interesting to be in this business in logistics, and there is a lot of things happening in here. And also feel free if you have some comments or some questions to put that into the chat, and I will take that up. And if I cannot answer you straight away, I will try to answer it afterwards. Let me see. So what I wanted to talk about now, and I want to give a little bit of introduction before going into the how you can really work with emissions, is to talk about what is Scope 3. Quite many of us have heard about these different scopes in the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. There are three. There is the Scope 1, which is the direct emissions, which is the emissions that the company produce. For example, say if it's a production of forklifts or trucks or machines, then it is that emission that the fossil fuel will generate. Then we will have the indirect emission, and that could be, for example, power purchase, electric powers, and emission that comes from that. And those two scopes, many companies are getting full control of and reporting on that. But what the big black hole is the Scope 3. That's the indirect emission, the value chain. And that is a very large category. It has very many subcategories. It actually has 12 subcategories. And today, I'm only going to be touching on two of them, which is basically the same. It is the upstream transportation and distribution, and downstream. So basically inbound, outbound transportation. And to give you a little bit of what is happening currently in the EU, I need to just move. See, yeah. So what is happening currently in the EU is that they have put on the agenda a program called Fit for 55. And that is from a directive from the EU to the member states that they need to reduce emissions. And there is quite a lot of good information in English and Swedish and whatever language about this. But basically, it is about lowering emission by 55% by 2030. So it is huge, and that covers, of course, Scope 1, 2, and 3. So companies need to really lower their emission within a few years. 2030 is getting very close, even if it's 6 years, but 6 years flies by very fast. And actually, what is happening now is that EU is also putting pressure on companies in certain size with employees of 500 and a turnover of 3 million euro or could be less, that they really need to report their full scope of emission in 2025. And that means they have to do it next year and have it under control next year. And that is a lot if you think about if you haven't done anything in Scope 3. Also, what is happening in Europe is the ETS trading. There is a possibility of buying CO2 emissions, carbon, if you want to, let's say, compensate. And the current price of 1 ton of CO2 today is about 80 euro per ton. However, that can change a little bit up and down, of course. The highest it was around 105 or close to, or very close to over 500, over 100. And so it has gone down all the way to 70 this year. So it is fluctuating. But it is predicted that this price will rise in the future. If you just think about the price of diesel and other fossil fuel, that is always increasing. So when EU is squeezing at companies, this will go higher because the credits of available in the system will be fewer and less. So my prediction and what I've been hearing is that this will go up. Then also, what is happening in Europe is road taxes. We all been used to road taxes in different countries, but now there is starting, for example, in Germany, that started in December this year, a special road tax for transportation driven in Germany, and that is equivalent to cost of 200 euro per 1 ton of CO2 emission output. And according to what I've been reading and hearing, that this cost is to finance the infrastructure in Germany for trains. So the German government or the German they want to move more goods over to train because of the state of the roads. I've been down there several times this year in Germany, and the roads are not as nice as here in Sweden. So they have a lot of traffic down there. Another thing also, which is in Europe, and we've been hearing over and over again, is the trucker driver crisis in Europe. We have an aging workforce. For example, in Poland, the majority of the driver is in the 60s and getting close to retirement. And the attraction for younger people to the business is not as high as it was. Especially, I would say, after Corona, people are used to work maybe remote, and you cannot, of course, do remote working while driving a truck. And of course, the famous Brexit had some influence on this. Let's see. So, just going to take some water here. And then also what I have been getting to or under like coming as a hurdle or a fence is that often shippers don't think they have a responsibility for their scope emission in outside their countries. Let's say a company which is in Sweden and it imports from Italy, then the view has been that they are only responsible for the emission output of that transport within Sweden, from when it comes to Sweden and then to the final destination. However, that is quite wrong, because the company that buys from another company in, for example, Italy, has the full responsibility of the emission that has been emitted from starting point to end point. And that's something that companies need to and people need to understand better. And it has been, in my view, more of when you talk to especially sustainability manager or the team of the sustainability, that this is not a high priority focus, and it is the responsibility of the transport company, which is totally wrong, because it is the shipper who owns the output. The transport companies are the ones who are selling the service, and of course they will if you will give them instruction to find a way to lower emissions by try different things in transportation, they will of course do it. But the drive needs to come from the shippers, and because the shippers are the owner of the emissions, if you could say so. So yeah, this was it blank. How to do things then? What can we basically do? What we need to do is to look at scope 3. And now I'm only talking about the inbound and outbound transportation. And we need to measure and evaluate. We need to somehow we need to access the data and measure the transportation output. And how could we measure or access the data? We can in some companies we can of course find it through the ERP system, but often the simplest thing is to ask the transport providers. And most companies have more than just one transport provider. Then we need to basically ask them all. Of course, the transportation providers could calculate out how much CO2 emission they emit in their distribution, but you will always get a different way of presenting things. So you will have a lot of different data that you need to put together. So by doing it yourself is more accurate, or more you have a better control of the data. And from my experience, to get information from transport providers about your transportation is not a problem. And you could be asking about like, transport per lane or per leg or per country or area or whatever. So it's basically going to companies, if you have, for example, Schenker, and ask them to give you their the full data for their transportation. If that is, for example, domestic Sweden with Schenker, then that is the data that they will give you, and you can use that then later to calculate out. And of course, the different transport modes have different CO2 outputs, as you probably know. And when it comes to the lowest, it is, of course, the sea, but is the slowest one. The road freight has the medium output and is medium in transportation, often can be fast. And the air freight is, of course, highest per ton kilometer, but is considered to be the fastest, especially if you're talking about between continents. Now I just need to jump into to see if there is any questions here. See. Just bear with me a few seconds. There's always something happening when you least expect it. That's the fun thing with being in a live event, is that things can happening all the time, and especially when you don't expect something to happen, then that will happen, and you need to be prepared for, for everything basically. Okay, let's see. Let's continue here. Just do it like this. Um, yeah. So what you need to do is first is to access data to be able to measure it, and the data can be a lot. But and the different transportation companies can have it in a different kind of way. But basically, as I will show you a little bit later, the data set that you need is not so complex. So again, how to measure and evaluate? You need to, of course, measure the data, and you need to before you measure, you need to define what time period. Often we are talking about 1 year, for example. It's similar as accounting. You will look at either it could be 12 months rolling of transportation data, because that will give you the whole fluctuation if there is some fluctuation in your company. And then what data you need? You need, of course, the data that is showing from where to where, how many kilos, and some basic information. I will show you an example. And then the part comes to measure. And then how should we measure? What tools or possibilities are there? There are quite many things, many ways of measuring the CO2 data. Of course, the greenhouse gas protocol will give you a detailed information about how to calculate it. Then you can, of course, set up some like, calculate it in Excel and do it yourself. There is online tools. If you Google just CO2 calculation, there are some free CO2 tools available. And then there is the tools that are that you need to have licensing for, that can help you do a calculation of CO2 emissions for all these different kind of modes. And that could be also, even if you have to pay for a license of that, and that is a huge time saver compared to if you have to do it yourself. So that is my experience, at least. And as I said before, I wanted to give you just some information about what data you need in this to calculate out the CO2 emission. And it is quite basic. You basically need some kind of shipment ID, and that is often just 1, 2, 3, or some dates, or not some dates, some numbers, unique numbers, and you need to know from what country, from what city, preferably a postcode, and then to what country and to what city it is, and then, of course, the weight of the shipment. So that is basically it, because in the from country and down to from city to another country and city, then you will get the distance, and then you have the weight, and then it's just a matter of in my case, I use a tool called Supply Chain Apps from Lockup, which calculate out the length, the transportation mode, and the weight according to some standard emission output from vehicles, if it's a truck, for example. And if you look at what is on the other side, then you will have, for example, and this is just the two pictures that I took, is a visual presentation of emissions. And in this case, the picture above is the total emission. That's close to 9,000 kilograms, 9,000 kilograms. And as you can see, it is split into two parts. And because that's the way that the CO2 emission is calculated, it is calculated in two parts. One part is the emission from producing the fossil fuel, for example, in this case, from the well to the tank, as it's called. And then the rest one, the light blue, which is 85.65% in this case, is what the vehicle itself is causing in CO2 emission for the transport. Excuse me, for the transportation. So it's not only what the transportation vehicle is emitting in the air of CO2. It is also the emission, the CO2 gas that it takes to produce a certain amount of fuel. And on the right side, you have the cumulative CO2 emission over time, for example. There are some more pictures that, of course, you can have. And this is just to show you a little bit about visual. And of course, you have the numbers there and so on. So when we talk about the CO2, how to reduce it, we need to first also get a company secured a company commitment to reduce emission. It is not enough just to say we will reduce emissions in this company by some 1 or 2, but the CEO or the board or someone higher up needs to commit that they want to reduce emissions. Because if you will have the support of the top management, you are more likely to succeed in this, because in some cases it can cost a little bit more. And it takes time, and time is money. And what you need to do is also you need to measure and evaluate results continuously. You need to look at this either on a yearly basis or twice a year. It could be that you are doing some kind of simpler output twice a year, and then have the full calculation in once a year. So you need to, as with any KPIs, you need to measure it on a regular basis. And of course, you need to communicate the results and the progress of what's happening within your organization and outside your organization. So that comes to the fact that we need to probably communicate with the EU about what is happening, or some authority to it is not enough just to leave financial statements, but now you have to do sustainability reports, as many companies are quite well doing today. However, there is not so much in them except words. So I think they can be better. But now I think we can come to the fun part of this. So solution to lower transportation emissions. There are some, and I'm going to talk about three possibilities in this case. There is, of course, the electrification of transportation. There's a lot of talk about this, and there is something happening. We have seen, and I've actually witnessed myself, how the production is starting. For example, here in Sweden, we have Scania and Volvo starting with heavy vehicles, heavy trucks in trucks. However, they are also producing quite a lot of fossil trucks. So they are doing it, but not in such a big volume that would be needed. And we have the downside on this is trucks can drive around 500 to 600 kilometers, then they need to be recharged. There is some discussion I've heard about that Daimler will come up with some truck that has a longer has more capacity. But in what I understand, as far as I can see now, these trucks are more suited for line haul between A and B, because when we are talking about distribution domestically or within some area, the capacity is not enough yet. And the infrastructure is not there yet as well. There is a lot needed to be done. There's a lot of discussion about how to charge vehicles and so on. And of course, support from the government. Now I'm talking about basically Sweden. The trucks are more expensive. So, of course, if you're a transportation company, and you have the choice of buying a truck that is diesel and then electric trucks, and the electric truck cost quite a lot of more, then it's cutting into your financing, and that's a big risk to take if you don't have any special contracts attached to that. And what I would say is that the first mover in this business do not have any special advantage. It's just what I can see. It's nice to have, but shippers currently now are not just buying from transportation company that has electric trucks. They are, as always, looking at the price. So, and that is why some nudging is needed from from the authorities side, either by some further tax or some assistance with those who are moving into the electrification of trucks, or to change the behavior of the purchaser, for example, or the logistics manager, and so on. The other thing that you have is the alternative fuel. You have, of course, HVO that has lower emission, but it's more expensive. That has been on on the table for transportation companies, that the shippers can go in and purchase and choose to use HVO fuel instead of regular diesel, for example, to lower the emission. But then they have to pay some premium or some fee. I put in there LNG, but that is more in sea freight. There are some other alternative fuels. Alternative is also electric trucks, but we covered that before. And there are some different kind of fuels available, but it comes often down to it is more expensive or takes a longer time to recharge or refuel. Then there is the intermodal way of thinking, and what I am talking quite a lot about. And we are so used to transportation from A to B. If it's a straight line, where the truck will drive from this destination to the next destination, and then delivers and go on to the next one. And we have been used to that, but we basically need to rethink a little bit about our transportation, because that can be good on the economical side, but not on the emissions side, where A to B to C could be better. And that is what I'm trying to illustrate in this picture here, which is showing an example of intermodal way through transportation through Europe, and that is from a factory to a train hub, for to be driven by train to the next train hub, and then to distribute it locally, for example, in this case Poland, and Hungary and Czech and some other countries around there. In this case, you would be instead of having multiple connection to the different points, and you would have transportation of vehicles going, especially over Germany, back and forth. You would have then just a train set, for example, going from the red dot to the red dot and back, and you would have the final distribution from the last train leg out to the customer. And this might be longer in kilometers, that the destination could be longer, and even if in time it can be, but the CO2 emission would be reduced quite a lot. If you compare a train to road freight, the emission cut for 1,000 kilometers is about 1 ton. So imagine if you have quite a many transportation, then you have quite a lot of reduction by doing it this way. And this is something that I believe that the shippers need to start to ask the transportation companies about how you can you reduce emission in my transportation. Could we do things somehow differently or in another way? because the pressure of reducing emission will come and has already come, but will increase more and more. Let me see. Just need to see one question that came in here. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So what I often discuss about and talk about on LinkedIn is the intermodal transportation, and this is just one figure, one picture that I wanted to show you about this, and to get you to start to think about that you really need to rethink. And it is possible to put much more road freight on train. And but the problem is that if you are not considering about doing it now, then within maybe 2 or 3 years, the system will be full, because there will be quite a lot of goods on the train. So in my mind, I want to see more trailers on train, not only containers, and I think we could reduce also the empty miles that are running back and forth. And that was basically my presentation, and I wanted to thank you for taking your time to listening to me. And my goal is to have either on a 3-week, once a month or twice a month, some continuous discussion about this, to go deeper into some part of the scope 3, because scope 3 is quite many different. There are quite many different categories in scope 3, and in this case I've just discussed basically 2 of them: inbound and outbound transportation. And I think that this can be really interesting, and I would like to have this kind of LinkedIn Live, maybe not 1 hour, let's say a half an hour or so, just to get discussion started, and to get people to think about this, and hopefully you will join me, and always good to have some input, and get some feedback on this. And as well, I will be introducing a course or education on this topic that I wanted to share with my network, where I want to help people to get the basic understanding of scope 3, and how they basically can get started. And that is because the scope 3 is quite big, and I'm missing people from logistics in this, because you need to understand some logistics to understand how to calculate and how to what data and what you need. So me as a person from logistics, I think this is a great thing. And with that said, I think I got some comments here, but I will get back to you on that, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listening to me. Thank you. Bye bye.